The moment my daughter's arrogant fiancé introduced me to his CEO as an unemployed nobody, I knew exactly what I had to do. What happened next left him speechless, his boss smiling, and everyone at the wedding stunned. But let me start from the beginning. The dinner meeting at Riverside Bistro was supposed to be a simple family gathering. My daughter Sarah sat between us, her engagement ring catching the candlelight as she beamed with happiness. Across from me sat Marcus Kane, her fiancé, adjusting his designer tie with the kind of self-importance that made my jaw clench. "So, Mr. Adams," Marcus began before our appetizers arrived, "Sarah mentioned you're between jobs right now, between jobs." The phrase hung in the air like stale perfume. I folded my napkin slowly. "I'm retired," I said simply. Marcus's smile widened, but his eyes remained cold. "Right, of course." "Well, I work at Quantum Dynamics, the leading tech innovation firm on the West Coast. I'm the Senior Director of Business Development." "Impressive," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "How long have you been there?" 4 years now. I've increased our revenue stream by 60%. He leaned back, clearly expecting admiration. "What field were you in, Mr. Adams?" "Nothing special. Just business." Sarah touched Marcus's arm gently. "Dad's being modest." "He always says that." Marcus nodded knowingly. "I see. Well, the important thing is staying active at your age, right? Maybe some consulting work, small projects." My fingers tightened around my water glass. "At your age." The condescension dripped from his words like honey from a broken jar. When the waiter approached, Marcus ordered the lobster thermidor with champagne sauce. Sarah chose the herb-crusted lamb. I glanced at the menu briefly. "I'll have the soup and salad special, please." Marcus's eyebrows rose. "The soup special?" "Dad, this is supposed to be celebratory," Sarah said, her cheeks flushing. "It's fine," I replied. "I prefer simple food." "Of course," Marcus waved dismissively. "Everyone has different situations." "I totally understand. Different situations." He understood my financial limitations based on a soup order. This 30-something executive thought he had me figured out completely. "Tell me about Quantum Dynamics," I said, steering the conversation away from my supposed poverty. "What kind of innovations?" Marcus's chest swelled visibly. "Cutting-edge artificial intelligence solutions. Machine learning protocols for enterprise optimization. We're revolutionizing how corporations operate." "Fascinating." "The company's been around long?" "About 25 years, but they really exploded in the last decade. Before that, probably just another garage startup. Now we're generating massive revenue." Marcus cut into his lobster with surgical precision. "I'm actually being considered for vice president, possibly regional director after that." Sarah smiled proudly. "Marcus is incredibly driven. He works 70-hour weeks sometimes." 70 hours? I raised an eyebrow. "That's dedication. Success demands sacrifice. Mr. Adams, that's something ambitious people understand." His tone suggested I understood very little. "The business world moves at lightning speed now. You have to evolve or get left behind." I took a spoonful of my soup. "Surprisingly good butternut squash." "Change can be challenging." "Exactly. That's why I stay current with market trends. Attend conferences, network constantly." "You can't just coast anymore." Marcus gestured with his fork. "People from your generation sometimes get stuck in outdated thinking." "The world's different now." Sarah shifted uncomfortably. "Marcus means things have evolved since Dad's era." "Right, evolution." I nodded slowly. "Survival of the fittest." Marcus missed the edge in my voice entirely. "Precisely. Companies like Quantum reward innovation and results. Old school mentality doesn't work anymore. We need fresh perspectives and aggressive strategies. And you provide those?" "Absolutely. My department's numbers speak for themselves. 60% growth doesn't happen by accident. He leaned forward conspiratorially. "Between you and me, some of the senior employees there are, well, let's say they're not adapting. Dead weight, if we're being honest. Dead weight." I filed that phrase away carefully. The senior employees must have experience. Though, I suggested mildly. Marcus shrugged. "Experience without evolution is just stagnation. The company would probably benefit from replacing half the veteran staff with hungry young talent." Sarah laughed nervously. "Marcus is very passionate about efficiency. Passion drives results," Marcus continued, warming to his theme. "That's what separates winners from ... quotes." He glanced at my soup bowl. "Well, from people who settle for less." The insult hung between us like smoke. People who settle for less. People like me, apparently. The unemployed old man ordering soup while his daughter's successful. Fiancé enjoyed lobster thermidor. I set down my spoon deliberately. The metal clinked against ceramic with surprising sharpness. "Settling can be a conscious choice," I said quietly. Marcus didn't hear the warning in my tone. He was too busy savoring his perceived victory over the pathetic old man across the table. 3 months passed like this. Marcus would visit, dispensing career advice and business wisdom to his future father-in-law. He spoke about networking opportunities and entry-level positions that might suit someone with my limitations. Each conversation added fuel to a fire that was growing steadily in my chest. The wedding was set for September 22nd at the Grand Pavilion, an elegant venue overlooking the bay. Marcus had chosen it specifically because it's where Quantum Dynamics held all their major corporate events. His boss, David Chun, would be attending along with several board members. 2 weeks before the wedding, Marcus visited my modest townhouse to discuss presentation concerns. "Mr. Adams," he said, settling into my worn leather armchair with obvious discomfort, "I need to discuss something delicate. What's on your mind?" "My boss will be at the wedding. David Chun, very influential in our industry. Perhaps you should dress more. How do I put this? Professionally than usual." I looked down at my casual slacks and cardigan. "I have a perfectly good suit." "I'm sure you do." Marcus's eyes swept over my simple living room. "But David expects a certain level of sophistication from his employees' families. First impressions matter enormously in business. Don't worry, son. I know how to handle executives." Marcus's expression suggested he doubted this claim entirely. "David Chun is a very powerful person, Mr. Adams. He's built Quantum from nothing into a major corporation. Men like that notice everything. How you dress, where you live, what you drive. Built from nothing." David would find that description amusing, considering we'd built it together from a cramped garage with nothing but determination and maxed out credit cards. "I'll make sure to dress appropriately," I assured him. Marcus nodded, apparently satisfied with his successful intervention. He had no idea he was planning to introduce his unemployed father-in-law to his business partner of 25 years. The morning of September 22nd dawned clear and crisp. I dressed with the careful attention of an actor preparing for his most important performance. The charcoal suit was impeccably tailored, but deliberately understated. The platinum cufflinks bearing the Quantum Dynamics logo were subtle enough to appear modest, distinctive enough for David to recognize immediately. At my private bank that morning, I picked up a wedding gift that had taken considerable thought. The certified check for $75,000 was made out to Sarah and Marcus Kane. The amount was carefully chosen, generous enough to demonstrate substantial wealth, large enough to shatter Marcus's assumptions about my modest circumstances. The Grand Pavilion buzzed with wedding activity when I arrived. Sarah was upstairs in the bridal suite, managing her nervous energy with final preparations. I made my way to the ceremony space where guests were gathering. David stood near the front, distinguished in his navy suit, scanning the assembled crowd with the curious interest of someone meeting his employee's new family. He spotted me across the room and nodded politely. A stranger acknowledging another stranger at a mutual acquaintance's wedding, Marcus emerged from a side room, resplendent in his formal wear, his confidence radiating like expensive cologne. When his eyes met mine, I saw a flicker of uncertainty from our recent conversation. "Mr. Adams," Marcus approached with forced joviality. "Glad you could make it. Wouldn't miss it for the world," I replied. "This promises to be unforgettable." The ceremony proceeded with traditional elegance. Sarah was radiant in her grandmother's restored wedding dress, walking down the aisle with quiet grace. Marcus stood at the altar, his eyes fixed on Sarah with genuine affection that reminded me why she'd fallen in love with him. When the officiant asked who gave Sarah in marriage, I stood proudly. "I do, with great love and hope for her happiness." The reception that followed transformed the pavilion into an elegant celebration, space under crystal chandeliers. Guests mingled with champagne glasses while a string quartet provided gentle background music. Positioned myself near the bar, watching Marcus work the room with practiced enthusiasm. David stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay, his distinguished profile outlined against the afternoon sunlight. Marcus approached David with calculated confidence, Sarah's hand tucked proudly through his arm. This was his moment, introducing his beautiful new wife to the man who controlled his professional future. "Mr. Chun," Marcus's voice carried perfectly across the reception noise, "I'd like you to meet my wife Sarah and her father." I moved closer, timing my approach with the precision of a watchmaker. Months of patience were about to pay dividends. David turned with polite interest, extending his hand to Sarah. "Congratulations, my dear. Marcus speaks of you constantly." "Thank you, Mr. Chun. Marcus admires you tremendously." Then Marcus gestured toward me with casual condescension. "And this is my father-in-law, Thomas Adams." His tone shifted subtly, establishing hierarchy. He's unemployed. Lives modestly here in town." The words hung in the air like expensive perfume, obvious to everyone within hearing distance. Several of Marcus's colleagues had drifted closer, probably expecting another demonstration of their rising star's social superiority. David's head turned toward me slowly, his executive-trained composure slipping for just a moment. His eyes found my face, then dropped immediately to my cufflinks. The Quantum logo caught the chandelier light perfectly, platinum and diamonds spelling out 25 years of partnership. "Thomas," David's voice carried genuine shock. "Thomas Adams," Marcus blinked, clearly not expecting this level of recognition. "You know him?" "Know him?" David's voice rose slightly, drawing attention from nearby conversations. "Thomas, what are you doing here?" "Attending my daughter's wedding," I replied calmly, extending my hand. "Good to see you, David." Marcus's face cycled through confusion, suspicion, and growing alarm. "Mr. Chun, I think there might be some mistake. This is just Sarah's father. He's unemployed." David stared at Marcus as if he'd announced his intention to become a professional circus performer. "Unemployed?" "Marcus, this is Thomas Adams, co-founder of Quantum Dynamics. My business partner for 25 years. The words hit Marcus like physical blows. I watched his face transform from confident superiority to dawning horror, his mouth opening and closing without sound. Around us, conversations had stopped entirely, wedding guests sensing drama more compelling than small talk. "Partner?" Marcus's voice cracked. "That's impossible. He's just ... Just what?" David's tone had shifted from surprise to something considerably less friendly. "Just the man who built our company from nothing? Just the genius who created half our core technologies? Just my closest friend and business colleague." Marcus turned to stare at me, his face pale beneath his wedding tan. "You're really the co-founder." "Co-founder and primary shareholder of Quantum Dynamics," I confirmed quietly. "The company where you've spent 4 years explaining to me how business really works." Sarah moved closer to Marcus, her face a mixture of sympathy and anxiety. She'd known this moment was coming, but couldn't have prepared for the public devastation written across her new husband's features. David's executive instincts were kicking in, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to difficult personnel decisions. "Marcus, exactly what have you been saying to my business partner?" Marcus's mouth worked soundlessly, his confident wedding day persona crumbling like expensive paper in rain. The colleagues who'd been impressed by his networking skills were now witnessing the most spectacular professional implosion in quantum's history. "I didn't know," Marcus finally managed, his voice barely above a whisper. "He never told me. The man you've been calling unemployed dead weight," David's voice could have frozen champagne, "created the algorithms that built your career." Derek's face had gone from wedding day glow to surgical pallor. Around us, the reception had transformed from elegant celebration to riveting spectacle, guests forming a loose circle like spectators at an unexpected performance. "Mr. Chun, please," Marcus's voice carried the desperation of a man watching his career evaporate. "I can explain everything. The only thing that needs explaining," David replied with steel in his voice, "is how my senior director could treat my business partner like a charity case without anyone telling me." "There's been a misunderstanding," Marcus pleaded. "The only misunderstanding is mine, for promoting someone who judges people by their bank balance rather than their character." The moment hung between us like a blade. Marcus stood before me with his entire future balanced on the edge of my next words, his face a study in absolute desperation. Sarah watched with tears threatening her wedding makeup, torn between the two men she loved most. "David," I said quietly, my voice carrying clearly in the hushed banquet hall. "Wait." David's eyebrows rose, but he remained silent, deferring to his partner's judgment as he had for decades. I looked at Marcus, seeing not the arrogant young man who'd condescended to me for months, but someone who had just learned the most expensive lesson of his professional life. "Marcus," I said, keeping my voice gentle but firm, "look at me." He raised his eyes, and I saw genuine remorse there. Not just fear for his career, but actual understanding of what he'd done wrong. "I accept your apology," I continued, watching relief flood his features. "But I have one condition." "Anything," Marcus whispered. "Absolutely anything. Never again judge someone's worth by the size of their paycheck or the neighborhood they live in." I paused, letting the words sink in. Character isn't measured in stock options, and respect shouldn't depend on job titles. Marcus nodded vigorously, tears of relief and genuine remorse in his eyes. "I understand. I promise. I've learned my lesson." I turned to David, who was watching our exchange with careful attention. "David," Marcus made assumptions based on incomplete information. "We've all done that at various points in our careers." David's expression softened slightly. "Are you asking me to overlook months of disrespect toward my business partner?" "I'm asking you to consider that sometimes the best lessons come from mercy rather than punishment." I placed my hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Marcus has excellent performance reviews. His numbers speak for themselves. Perhaps this experience will make him a better leader, not just a more careful one." David studied Marcus for a long moment, his businessman's instincts warring with respect for his partner's judgment. Finally, he nodded slowly. "Marcus, you'll keep your position, but you're on probation for 6 months. Any hint of the attitudes Thomas described, and you're gone." "Understood?" "Completely," Marcus managed, his voice thick with gratitude. "Thank you, Mr. Chun. Thank you both." I extended my hand to Marcus, and he shook it with the grip of someone sealing a sacred covenant. "Welcome to the family, son," I said quietly. "Try to remember that everyone deserves respect until they prove otherwise." "I will," Marcus promised. "I absolutely will." Sarah stepped forward and embraced both of us simultaneously, her joy evident despite the traumatic revelation. Around us, the wedding guests began to relax, conversations resuming as the drama resolved into something resembling family harmony. David clapped me on the shoulder, his familiar grin returning. 25 years, and you can still surprise me, partner." "Retirement keeps life interesting," I replied as the reception continued around us. I watched Marcus interact with other guests, noting the subtle changes in his demeanor. The edge of superiority had been replaced by something that looked remarkably like humility. When it came time for toasts, Marcus stood with his champagne glass, his voice steady but humble. "I want to thank everyone for being here today, especially my new father-in-law, who taught me that wisdom often comes disguised as ordinary kindness." Later, as Sarah and Marcus prepared to leave for their honeymoon, my daughter pulled me aside. "Dad," she said quietly, "was this all an elaborate lesson?" I smiled, watching Marcus help elderly guests to their cars with newfound attentiveness. "Sometimes the best gifts come wrapped in unexpected packages, sweetheart. And if he hadn't learned? If he'd stayed arrogant? Then you would have learned something important too." I kissed her forehead. But I had faith that underneath all that bluster was someone worth saving. As I drove home that evening, I reflected on the day's events. Marcus would never again assume someone's worth based on their appearance or circumstances. David had gained a deeper understanding of character assessment and hiring. And Sarah had married someone who just received the most valuable lesson of his professional life. Sometimes justice served with wisdom tastes sweeter than revenge. Where are you listening from today? And tell me, what would you have done in my situation? Have you ever had to teach someone a lesson about respect and assumptions? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that remind us that things aren't always what they seem.